Okay, so I'm just assuming you can hear me. I have no idea if you can or not. Uh, so this is literally the ever first attempt I've done. Turn speakers off. What? I don't have speakers on. So I literally, yeah. So this is literally the first ever attempt at a live stream of any sort. So I just want to get this off the ground and apologize to everybody right now. This could be an absolute train wreck. Um, I have no idea how this is going to work. So yeah, for all the people that used to quality streaming, you guys might want to find another channel because that's just not going to be here. So, um, all right. So I'm loading back in. I'm hoping that I've got all the annoying debug messages out. I'm using the 1.2 version of Gnome Sequencer today. This is not out. It's still got some bugs, and that's why it's not released yet. But I'm hoping it'll be out either later today, tomorrow, the day after. What it's got a whole bunch of bug fixes for things like when you open up the editor, which if I go back into game, if you just didn't load a sequence and you hit create edit, it'll now load a blank one. The blank sequence has the word cast auto attack, so it fixes that bug. Yeah, if I go into combat with a target dummy, I try to bring up the editor. Instead of it popping up with an error message, it turns around and goes, please wait till you've left combat before using the editor. Note to one of the guys off the YouTube forum just basically sent me a note saying I could just click off a target dummy and it would stop attacking. Thank you, that was the best useful bit of stuff ever. So things like that. The other fun stuff that's coming in 1.2, and this has taken a lot of work, is I've started putting in some syntax checking for sequences. Right. So things like target, cast sequence, use, those sorts of bits and pieces are coming up in purple. Like the mod type bits, I still haven't got it perfectly right. So, but things like no channeling, alt mods, talent this, those kind of bits are coming up in green. The spells that it knows are coming up in blue. I've taken Drain Soul out of the translator just so that it didn't know one just to prove it, and the ones it doesn't know are coming out as red. So those kind of bits are all coming into play and coming together. There's other like edits and bits of pieces. The options panel has changed, so interface add-ons. So instead of being just one central tab, it's broken up a bit. This one at the bottom, plugins, this has literally got anything that Gnome Sequencer knows about in-game is listed here. So one of the things that people have asked over time is, I've added this macro in and I'm trying to figure out how this stuff all goes together, how it fits in. This panel will basically tell you if it knows about it. So that my macros mod, it knows that, the game can, like, Gnome Sequencer Enhanced can see it. So if your macro is not coming up, it could just be a problem with the macro as opposed to it's not loaded in or whatever else. So we went through a troubleshooting thing on the WoW Lazy Macros forum, and the first question was, is my macros loaded up here? Yes, it is. Great. All right. The next thing is, can Gnome Sequencer Enhanced see it? This will tell you if it can see it. And then the next one is, if it can't see that, if it can see it here but it can't see it there, you've got some bits and pieces, but generally then it's a case of, if it can't see it there, then you've got a problem with your actual sequence itself. The common problems that people get is that you're matching quotes, or the wrong quotes, or matching brackets, or the wrong brackets. If you've copied, on the website, on the WoW Lazy Macros website, there's a button to put things in code. So you type in your sequence, drag the whole stuff around, and then right at the end you've got a button in the thing that says code. If you tick that box, it puts it in a black box on the WoW Lazy Macro site. It means that what that does is, it basically means that these quotage type bits, they're actually the ones that are used for programming, as opposed to the ones that like Microsoft Word puts in. So Microsoft Word puts in the really curvy, pretty ones. Web browsers do it, fonts do it, they just change to that automatically. But when you try and put them into programming code, WoW turns around and goes, I've got no idea what that is, and stuff just doesn't work. So the key things to check is stuff like, for every one of those, there should be one of these. There should be matching beginning, close type things. Yeah, same help text, same beginning, close. The double braces, there's got to be a matching set of double braces, beginning end type stuff. So that's one of the common bits. Now, this is the Atom editor. I'm using it for today. I find it personally easier to use, well, easier being relative, but I find it works better for me than Notepad++. I found it by pure accident. I have a Mac and I have a PC. I took my Mac away because I was going and spending a couple of days interstate for a work trip, and it basically said, here's this edit, it said open with Atom, and I was like, I got no idea what Atom is, but the Mac told me I could open stuff with Atom, and I went, the things I like about this is that people have asked, how do I get these kind of colors and bits and pieces happening? So if I hit the menus, are they popping up? No, they're not. Fantastic. So ignoring the fact that this is not popping up, I've gone packages. No, I'm just trying to find the menu option. So file and settings off the main menu that you can't see, then brings up this window that, yes, you can see. So in the packages that are installed in here, now packages are basically, here's a whole bunch of add-ons that other people have written for the editor. There's these two I found. It's called Language Luel Wow and Language Tok Wow, written by a guy called Nebulag. These two basically do the color coding type bits and the formatting and display stuff that I'm using. So to get those, you just go down to install and just type wow. Press enter. It'll find all sorts of bits and pieces, your aesthetic, None of this stuff's the stuff you're after. But in the searching parts, it'll come up there. Here's one, wow spell tooltips. So display tooltips of World of Warcraft spells when a spell ID is selected. That's great if you're doing this stuff for other stuff. But so there's that language, wow, the Tok one. Yeah, anything that comes up relating to World of Warcraft, it'll throw in there as useful stuff for you. So I'm running just those two, and it's coming out. The other thing that Atom does that's really good and really helpful for you is that when you're sitting at one of these braces or brackets or whatever else, it'll tell you where the closing one is. So I don't know if you guys can see that there's this little blue underline just under that brace where I'm sitting with the mouse, and it's got the matching one at the other end. So if for whatever reason you had something like that, you can actually check, okay, this hasn't highlighted because it hasn't put that little underline in to show you where the end one is. So it does that for all these things. So sometimes it does it for quotes. It's less for quotes, but more for like brackets and braces type bits. Is this making sense so far? I'm looking back at the Twitch channel feed as a way of actually finding out info. Everyone's gone just super quiet. So all right. So so what I'm expecting will happen out of this is I'm watching the chat feed out of Twitch, and I'm just going to be as I'm talking about stuff. If you've got questions, you've got bits you want to know about, whatever else, just throw it in there. I will try and basically get to whatever you're asking about, because the whole point of this thing is so that you guys can ask as many questions as you like. If you want to turn around and say, let's create a macro for something, we'll go through and do all of that kind of stuff. So what I'm just going through right now, literally at the moment, is just stuff that people have asked, and stuff that people seem to ask commonly. So I mean, I can jump from this and we can go do real stuff or something that's meaningful. If this is boring and you're all way past this, we'll move on. But yeah, so you got the open close brackets. People have asked, what are the differences between these types of things and these types of things? The difference from a WoW perspective is none. The only one that really worry about is where you've got these ones. Right, so where you've got just that single quote at either end, you then can't turn around and put something like Avengers Shield in the middle of it, because that single quote will end. So if I change this one here, Right, you see how it's basically gone and just muddled up all the colors and told me different stuff? It's basically going, okay, that one starts there and ends there. I've got no idea what any of this stuff is. This is what the editor's telling you. Okay, I see close. I've only been using this for 2 days, my testing. I've just been mashing the macros like crazy. Is that correct, or should I wait with each click the time of the global cooldown? That is a really commonly asked question. It's one of those ones that it's about horses for courses, right? Some people write their macros purely and solely around the fact that someone's going to be mashing their buttons. And I'll just fix this one I've broken. I write mine purely and solely because that's how I play. I basically have got it just sitting there going bang, 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 bang. So on my ones, I've got like the holy power spenders at the front, and then I've got the holy power generators at the end. And that's literally so that I can play it like that. Some people write some other macros, and I'll see if I can find an example of one where it is really dependent on. So like this one by John Metz, this DB Blood one. This one's really dependent on hitting the button at the right time on the global cooldown. So it's literally a case of figuring out, is this one, so it's should I be spamming or should I be clicking on the global cooldown? The answer to both is yes. It's just a case of getting used to what am I? But it's just getting used to the macro and basically spending some time with the target dummy. I main Feral, which uses cast sequence. Yep. Go us. What's you may. Okay, so cast sequence is not really a decider. The difference, I'll see if I've got one of these in game. Give me a sec. So, yeah, I've got all sorts of weird random stuff sitting around in here from days gone past. So, all right, I'm going to create a new one. So in answer to your question, we've actually got to look at the mechanics of cast sequences. So a cast sequence macro is different to the normal ones, ENCE, because it's basically a case of we'll put a bunch of abilities one after another, and it'll literally move through them left to right from beginning to end. So we start with we do a Crusader Strike. What's a good pally rotation? Well, actually, what's a bad pally rotation? So Crusader Strike. Let's see, we want something that requires 3 holy power. Templar's Verdict. It requires 3 holy power. All right. So we put this in place, and it'll basically go Crusader Strike, and Templar's Verdict. If I throw that there, what'll happen though is I'll get through the first Crusader Strike, the second Crusader Strike, and then it'll hang, right? Because it won't continue no matter how many times I spam the button. It's not proceeding on to that Templar's Verdict because I just don't have 3 holy power and I can't use it. So cast sequences get to that point where they've gone, I'll do what I want, but when I get to this point, I'm just going to stop and sit there. So if I do another Crusader Strike because it's back, now that's activated, and I can do the Templar's Verdict, and off it'll go. So cast sequences are literally about, I've got these things and I need them to do in order. But when you look at a cast sequence back in Gnome Sequencer, what it's doing is, if I take this one from DB Blood, it's got, alright, so it's got a pre-macro and a post-macro, and we'll come back to them in a sec. It's got cast Morrowind, then it's got this cast sequence, and so forth. So what it'll do is the first time through, first button press, it'll do Morrowind. Second button press, Death's Caress. Third button press, Death's Caress. Fourth button press, Heartstrike. fifth button press Death Strike, and then it'll go back through again. Then it'll go Morrowind, Blood Boil, Heart Strike, Death Strike, Morrowind, Death Strike, Blood Boil, Heart Strike, Death Strike, Morrowind, Blood Boil, Death Strike, Heart Strike, Morrowind, Soul Gorge, Thump. That's assuming that you were able to hit those buttons at those points. So if Blood Boil's stuck for whatever reason, I can't imagine Blood Boil being stuck, it'll go Morrowind, Death's Caress, I can't do anything yet, and move on through it. So in Gnome Sequencer Enhanced, mixing cast sequences with cast sequence macros have some different bits and pieces to do. So does that answer your question, Eyes Close? So looking through stuff. Okay, trying to aim for an order in the globals. So yeah, so some people have asked, what's the right delay for what is the right delay to use if you're using auto hotkey or something like that? The right delay is the one that works for you. So on some hardware ones, like if you're using a Razer Naga keyboard, 0.4 I think is pretty much a nice sweet place to be in. Some of the other ones, so if you've got it too short, like it's going like every 3 milliseconds, what it'll do is it'll disconnect you from WoW. So if it's running too fast and it's going key press, key press, key press, key press, key press, it'll DC you from WoW. If it's running too slow, then your global cooldown will happen and you'll be waiting and missing type. So it's one of those tuning things that you've actually got to get right for you guys. You've got to turn around and put it together and go, okay, I'm going to play this way, I'm going to play as a button masher, I'm going to start at 0.4, is that behaving the way I expect? If it's not behaving the way I expect, I'll adjust it up or I'll adjust it down, and then change it around. So it might be a case of that for your computer with your hardware on your connection, 0.4 DCs you, 0.7 keeps it running and keeps it going, and you've got an actual nice, neat balance, then that's the right answer for you. Yeah, I've got a Logitech G13 keyboard here in front of me. I've got a Naga Chroma 3. I've got a Naga mouse. I also have auto hotkey, and all of them have got different settings and different bits. I remember the original G15, which was very, 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 very scary for showing my age. But all of those bits, each one of those bits, the actual way they describe the setting is marginally different. So it's one of those ones that there's no super easy answer. It's one of those ones you've just got to get the right balance bit. Yeah. So yeah, your network makes a huge difference. If I'm on one of the better forms of broadband we've got in Australia. I'm still running a 400 millisecond ping back to WoW if I'm playing on the US servers. And that just changes a whole way about how does a macro work, and the lag and all that kind of stuff changes bits around. So some people I've been hearing some stuff where people turn around and I've got some punch cards. We're not going to talk about that. So people talk about, I did this macro, I was running it, and I was doing, I'm just going to pick an arbitrary number, I was doing 50k with it. Fantastic, here it is, great. I'm using these talents, Somebody else picks that macro up, they've got a different network, they've got a different computer, their hardware is different, their software is different, they have different talent choices, they play differently, and all of a sudden that same macro that was doing 50k for one person is doing 20k for somebody else. Okay? That kind of stuff, that's not the macro's fault, that's not the macro's writer's fault, that's a case of you still got to take the sequence that somebody's given you, and you've got to shape it and mold it and make it your own. Right? So, like the Paladin ones that I've got in here, like this one, DB Red. I wrote that in 20 minutes when I got beta and got Ashbringer, and I used it from 100 to 110. That's the total amount of time and thought I've put into it. I've basically gone, what are my buttons? Okay, let's just smash them together and hope for the best. So, is it optimized? No way. It's not even close. If you want some good optimized stuff, have a look at the stuff that Dark Reigns is doing. That's the other Tim from the Whale Lazy Macros forum. He's put together his own mod that's a plugin to GS that's sitting on Curse at the moment. I'll let him put up a link and advertise himself. But his the stuff that he's doing, he spends hours and hours and hours and hours and hours tuning his macro just so that he can get as many quirks and bugs and bits and pieces out of it. Now, yeah, that may be it, and maybe very much a case of somebody picks up one of Dark's macros and it just doesn't behave the way that they would like. It's not that Dark's doing the wrong stuff. Dark's doing awesome stuff. It's just all those variable bits that you just can't turn around and go, I want a one-button win macro, please give me one, and it'll work in all cases. Yeah. So, is this stuff so far making sense? Yeah, the forum. So somebody did some bright spark. I think they ran out of things to attacking the Australian census website. So instead, they decided to pick on Whale Lazy Macros. Lutechi's basically been dealing with a DDoS attack. There are some ups and downs and bits and pieces, but he's dealing with those kind of bits. Lutechi does a whole lot of stuff in the background that a lot of guys don't even realize. But he funds and looks after the website perfect, just on his own. He takes care of all of that stuff and has put it up there as a thing for the community. And I'm trying to find a nice polite way of saying bastards, but I can't, so I'll just say bastards, have literally, yeah, they try and take out the stuff he's doing. So yeah, so at the moment there are some hassles with the website. Luke's looking at him, he's dealing with them, he's doing an awesome job. Just a little bit of patience. If you donate to him, he can then buy better gear and better equipment, and he'll do amazing things with it. So I'm really grateful to the stuff that Luke does for the community, because none of this stuff would exist if he hadn't started Whale Lazy Macros back when he did. And I'm dribbling. So coming back to stuff, right? So if I come back to this editor, on the left, I've got this is literally a case of all of my mods that are loaded up in game are sitting here in the editor on the side. So it's literally a case of I've gone see World of Warcraft interface add-ons. I've gone right click open with Atom, and it's opened up the whole lot. So it means that I can flip between things like the Paladin file here, and I can flip between that and the equivalent Paladin file down the bottom. So if I go back to this one, I'll just go close all other tabs, so it'll reduce me back to, that's not quite as far as I wanted to go. So I've got my Paladin, I've got the DB Paladin file. So let's take this DB run and let's make some changes to it. So I believe Roger was talking earlier in, so this editor, this is an editor called Atom. I'll put a link to it in the feed. It's Windows, Mac, Unix, works with whatever. It's like if you've got Notepad++ and that works for you, this is just an alternative that I use. But yeah, so we're talking on Discord. No. We're talking on Discord earlier. If I said you're a pain in the butt, that's not me saying that whatsoever. That's not me implying that. We're talking on Discord earlier. You're talking about you wanted to add some healing into, some self-healing into some of these macros. So what I've done is the first thing I've done is I've gone copy. So I've gone copy out of the Paladin macro. I've gone paste into my macros, and we'll just call this super rat. Right. So literally a case of it's there doing some stuff. So if we go back to in-game, close that, we bring up the talent windows. Where's Word of Glory? So heal yourself and up to 5 friendly targets within 15 yards for 55819. Okay, great. So let's take that. We'll take that talent. I'll just do a console reload. So we're going to take that talent, we're going to throw that talent into a sequence. No, Amber, you won't get if you use Vi, you won't get thrown out of the channel. As long as if you use Emacs, then you probably will. So what do we call it? We called it Super Rat. So we've got our starting point. Go edit. Right. So I'm bringing up so this is what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 3. Okay. So we're going to bring up the spellbook and abilities. So I'm just going to pick somewhere at random to put this in. Word of Glory, right? So basically this sequence will come down, it'll do Judgment, Crusader Strike, Blade of Justice, Consecration, and then if it's got 3 Holy Power, it'll try and do Word of Glory, but only if you've got, on the 5th row, the 3rd talent, which is this box in the middle here, this talent 5-3. Oops, it helps if I actually do it correctly. Right, Word of Glory. So if we go save, this has now created a macro for us called live test. So where's live test? At the moment, this is a bug with 1.2 that I've got to fix. I've got to fix that icon selection-y type stuff so that it actually comes up with the right icon. But if we drag that down to 2, and we'll use this on a target dummy. Now, somebody else asked, how can I, like old Gnome Sequencer, it used to be able to click on, Aggie Torboy, I'll come back to that question in a sec. So you can do for single lines for the talent of any level. There is a slight if then else types thing you can do, and I'll come back to that right in about 30 seconds. But live test. Now somebody turned around and asked, for a Gnome Sequencer macro, in the old Gnome Sequencer you used to be able to, the icon down the bottom here would update every click. So it would cycle through blip, 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 blip. The way you do that is you change the icon to the big massive question mark. Not quite, Roger. I'll come back to your question also in a sec. So instead of having an icon, if you specify an icon, it'll stay that icon. But if you change the icon to the question mark, which is this first one here, it'll literally cycle through, and as it cycles through the macro, it'll update the icon down in your taskbar. So if we do this for our live test one, change it to that. All right, what'll happen is this macro will turn around and go through. So invalid escape code in the chat message. So I've got something wrong with my macro. Let's come back to this. Probably because it's picked up some of the color stuff and I haven't quite sorted that out. So what I'll do, let's go. All right, I'll save this. So yeah, the fun part of doing all this stuff live is when it doesn't work, there's no ways to really hide it. Come back to our superret. Paste. Save that. Translator off. So we've got our superret one. Edit it. Live test. Question mark icon again. Right. So we've got our thing, we've got our Crusader Strike, we've got Blade of Justice, we've got Consecration. We're at 3 Holy Power, so it'll now do a Word of Glory. And I've got something wrong in the text in the thing, so we'll fix that in a sec. But now it's back to Judgment, Consecrate. Yeah, so I'm missing a space between some of the brackets and bits and pieces, so let's go back and edit that. So the reason it was talking and saying target enemy, no harm, no dead is because I had two spaces right there. And what was the other one I'm missing? You're missing a space between the brackets at talent. So should that be like that? Okay. We have question mark display the active cell. Yeah, so so that's what we've just done. So okay, we'll try this again. Coming back up. So it's not talking at us. It's activating the buttons, moving through. Some things are on cooldown and you see it skipping past them. It's yeah. So when I got the translator running, the translator deals with the white space. It's just I haven't coded that back in for when the translator's not there. And yet, Dark, you're absolutely right. You can just do the other. So you can do stuff like that. Combat talent, word of glory. Line 19. So yeah, it's not in this particular case, Amber. Sorry. If I tab to the right spot. Hey. Okay, is that better? Can you see? You can actually see what I've done now. Yeah. It's more so much. It's not Lua. It's the way Blizzard's written the macro code. Is the macro code has to have things exactly just right. Stuff. Now, okay. So coming back, a couple of questions. Somebody turned around and asked about can I have more than one things on a line? So we've got talent 5-3 word of glory. If we put a semicolon in and we put another spell, so like I'm just picking consecration for the sake of it. This will basically do, if I've got the talent 5-3, I'll do word of glory. If I don't have that talent, then I'll do this other thing instead. So that's the closest you can get to an if type question about if I've got this talent, use it. If not, do something else. It doesn't work for any other exception apart from that. So one of the things about this stuff is that you can't do an if then else type question inside of a sequence. You can, however, be super, super, super creative about how you turn around and arrange the order of your lines to give you that kind of an effect, right? So it's literally a case of that's why I put my spenders up the top. The things that consume holy power, I put them at the top of the thing, and I put the things that generate holy power at the bottom. Right. So that's that question. That was that question. I'm just going back through a bit. Can it tell how much holy power and not cast on this? No. But what it will do is if you don't have enough holy power, it'll skip that cast and go on to the next one and keep moving through. So it won't sit and wait for you to have the amount of holy power that you need. So I've looked at the Lua stuff. I've looked at line 19. Yep, yeah, I fixed 19, but I fixed it in game and I didn't fix it on the other one. Yeah, consecration is also talent. I was just picking something in and just typing it in, so I had something to fill in the space. The semicolons is basically a case of this or that, but it only comes into play when you've got this thing, the talent 5-3 thing, right? Type bit. So they're the conditional-ish type part. So I'll take that out. All right, so we've got this macro that we've mucked around with, and we want to save it. So we go copy. We go back out to the editor. We go paste. So line 19, talent 5-3 word of glory. What am I missing on line 19? Right, looking at it right now, what am I missing? No closing brackets. So I've got the closing brackets there and there. Which one am I missing? So I've got it there. I've got a comma in between, just choose between the two. So I appreciate the delay that comes up with the stuff, so that's why I'm just working through. Yeah, so I've got a comma. I've got comma. Yeah, so both of those two ways should be the same as doing the same. Let's see if I've got the note that Dark left me a minute ago. Correct. Alright, so if this works, I should be able to go back to game, do a reload UI, and when we turn around and do that, I should be able to use that macro and Word of Glory should go off. Right? So if I close this, so reloading UI, got my target dummy, superret, no, okay, so and for some reason it's still spitting out an extra space. So if I take those away, yeah, so there's my holy word going off. So separating the combat and talent back out into two things that started behaving. So Lua handles some things in spaces, it doesn't handle others as well. But Roger, what we were trying to tell you earlier about changing the... it's actually behaving. It's actually behaving and working. It does. The space in between the two back here is an optional one. It doesn't have to be there. It's nice to have. That one makes sense. So there's some places that you can get away with that stuff. There's other places you can't. All right. So what other fun questions did we have floating through stuff? Yeah. So there's stuff about the mod keys, other bits and pieces. So literally a case of what other questions have you guys got for me? I can ramble on about just about anything. What would you like to see, or what would you like to do? Right. Have you guys got any other fun questions or bits and pieces to have a look at? All right. So while you're thinking, yeah, I mentioned the interface options are going to change in 1.2. So plugins I talked about earlier has all of the new stuff. I'll turn that off for a sec. Plugins has, this is all of the add-ons that it knows about. So there's Darks, there's a bunch of mine, there's a few others to add in. Color, this is basically changing the colors in different parts of the mod. Right, so if I do a /gs, it comes up with these colors down here. Icon, I'll come back to in about 20 seconds. Can you do different orders for the priority list in the editor? Yes. Right. So I've got this stuff here. I can turn around and change the author color to be pink. And then when I do a GS, they all come out as pink. So the colors are in that space. Okay. The next set of stuff that's in the interface options is actually the questions you're asking. So there are the options in here are a whole lot different. Well, they're not different, they're just fits. This clean temporary macros, this will delete the stub for live test. So if you're using live test often and over and over and over and over again, it'll do that. The macro translator turns around and does the color coding, but it also changes does the color coding. I'll need to come back to your question in a second, Zero. It does the color coding, but it also does changes the macro from one language to another. Right? So if you're playing on a client that's not English, picking up the macro and the sequences that we have, like these ones with English terms like judgment, crusader, strike, whatever else, they won't work. But what they will do is you can actually, it'll turn around and change this, but you can turn around and change the sequence to. So if we take dbret, translate to, and let's pick a nice language like Korean. Does anyone speak Korean? Going, gone. But anyway, so this will actually translate the spells into Korean so that they actually will work with a Korean client. Where this gets funky is that not all of the spells, so I have to do all of the translation manually, and so like the 2 red drained souls, it's telling me that I haven't actually got a translation for trained souls in for everybody else, so I need to fix that before 1.2 can go out. So that's that one. That's that one. So delete orphan macros. This is basically, there's a command line to do this, but if you've got like macros that you've taken out and are no longer in the game, you can click that to put them back. This one here is about using global account macros. So on the macros tab, which I just happen to have here, you have 120 general macros that you can share across your account. So they're available for every character on every server. But you then have, I think it's 16 or 18 personal macros for this particular character. So when you do a GS, it turns around and puts the macros into the character specific tab. That option, yeah, I'll add that Agi. I'll add that into the 1.2 build. So I'll make a note of that and I'll add that in. That's the clean orphan, so like GSE clean. I'll fix that. So when this thing fills up, there used to be an error message that will pop up that says you've got 120 macros. You don't have 120 macros, you just have more than 18 personal macros. So what that option will turn around and do in interface, this one here, use global account ones, that will turn around and change, that'll basically say, I filled up the characters tab, I'll put any extra macros in the general one, and if you fill up the general one, it just won't create it when you do a /gs. It will tell you that you've got to do stuff, it just won't do it. So set default icon ? So this is the one about, so if somebody set an icon or whatever else, but you do a /gs, if you turn this option on, when it creates the macro in your macros tab, it'll automatically every time put the question mark in for you and override that setting. So it'll basically just go straight to that. So if I bring up macros and where's our super rep one, I'll just go delete. I want to do a GS. It's come straight back again, but it's got that icon. If I go change name and icon, it's already tied to that question mark for me. So as I bring it down, walk up to the target dummy, it changes to the next spell. Does that answer your question about the different order, the iconish, that's the icon stuff? All right. So these ones that are in this next block require a target to use, prevent sound errors, prevent UI errors, clear errors. These 4 may trigger a in-game warning about custom commands and scams and bits and pieces like that. What they're there for is they used to see them in boilerplate. Macro after macro after macro would have, in the post macro, it would have like, if I just hover over, I know you can't see the tooltip in game. Oh, you couldn't even see the options in game. I'm so sorry. Let me go back a step. Okay, so I'll come back to this window. So clean temporary macros, using the translator, delete orphans, global account macros is this one, setting the default icon is that one there. Seeding an initial macro, I use that for troubleshooting. It's going to disappear very soon in the thing. So these ones here are the ones I'm talking about now. So you used to see things like back a step. So I'm going to come back to this so I can actually show you what I mean. You used to see in Boilerplate, and you still see on some of the traditional ones. So console. So you used to see lines like this: console sound effects enable 1 and run and things like that, right? So at the moment I'm just whose macros, if it begins with this one here is just one that we created earlier. I'll copy it and I'll post it into the forum for you so that we can use it. Yeah. But you'd have these lines like these two, these console UI ones, these ones. They didn't really, if you were looking at the macro, you couldn't really make sense of, if you didn't know what they did, they didn't look like a in-game spell or an in-game command. They were just a thing that somebody put in there and people would copy them like boilerplate, right? The other ones you'd see are things like use 14, use 15. Right. Again, they weren't really obvious, and they didn't really. Yeah, I know it's out of alpha order. That's okay. But these ones, yeah, they weren't really obvious. They weren't really clear of what they did. So I've replaced them back in game with a global option so that it's there for all of your characters. Yeah, it is spelled incorrectly, so it should have been like that. Yeah, so I've moved these from being 24, 25. This is what happens when you do stuff live. You guys see all my errors and faults, which I normally edit out of the videos I put on YouTube. But you'd see these lines, and they were in like boilerplate. And what I mean by boilerplate is they were copied and pasted, and everybody had them line after line after line after line after line. And what the first ones did, these top two, right before 703 launched, there was a scam where somebody had turned around and created this hack that you do a run command and it would give somebody else at another end, like it'd give a remote person in game the ability to send commands to your client. Your client would run the commands, and that would be basically open up your bags in your inventory, sell everything off, and then mail the money to them. And there were hacks like this that weren't really hacks, quotes in quotes. They were just literally cases of people running random stuff that they didn't understand, didn't make sense of, because GuildX said that if you're going to come on our Mount Run, you would do those kind of bits and pieces. Yeah, if you're coming on our Mount Run, blah 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 blah, you need to have these things that set up our layouts and and all that kind of stuff. I've just got a friend saying, "Can I get a guild invite?" Sorry. And boom, it would go through and get it done. So I've taken these lines out and I've put them in the middle here. These first four have the ability to trigger this scam warning. So basically going, you're about to run a custom script. By running a custom script, you risk doing stuff. So what I've done is I've taken them out of this, because that way anyone looking at this, if you read this stuff at the top, you have an idea of what it's doing. If you read this stuff down in the post macro, you don't necessarily, it's not clear, it's not obvious. So these next 5 items here in the item bars basically turn around and said, okay, let's add your first ring slot, your second ring slot, your first trinket, your second trinket, and your neck item. And so instead of having these use 15 and use 14 and use 13, it's basically a case of first trinket, first ring, second ring. So you can put them in. If you're in a raid, you can go turn them off. You can then turn them back on. You're running around, you're AFK soloing, you're doing whatever you're doing. You want to turn your legendary ring on because you're just running around doing random stuff, and you just want it to go off as whenever it's off cooldown, go off again. Great, fantastic. You want it in AFK, in auto mode. Turn your ring on. Great. You're in a raid. You want to be serious because raiding is serious business and Yeah, rating is super, super, super serious business apparently. You can then come in, turn your ring off. You don't have to have separate versions of the macro. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to adjust it. You just do bits down. Um, so Roger's question was, why not lock it down to simply not recognize any unapproved macro? Because I leave that to Blizzard to be the policeman of what's approved and what's not approved. But I want it so that if you're looking at a GSE macro, you may not be a macro author, you may not understand all the intricacies of macros, but you should be able to read it and have an understanding of what it's going to do. So I'm leaving it at, I'm not taking away the ability to do the stuff, but I don't want to be the super cop or the nanny or the person that makes the rules as to what you can or can't do. So that's these ones here. These next options down the bottom, they get very, 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 very messy. So I use them to basically troubleshoot whenever something's going right or wrong to find out what the problem is. So as you can appreciate, the code to doing this stuff is getting rather large and rather insane. So I turn mod debug on, and it starts spitting out a whole bunch of stuff about what's going on. So I take this one, we'll take this macro here, we go edit, and it starts telling me line by line by line what it's been doing and what it's been spitting out. So if something's not quite working, if something's not quite working the way that you're after, it'll go through and do that. Now, okay, so the question that somebody's asked for Kill Me, can you put an option so those of us that do know what we're doing, we can tailor it a bit more depth. You can still put those commands in your My Macros folder and they will behave. Right? You can still put them in your sequence, in your scripts. Those commands will behave. I'm not filtering them out. I'm just trying to give people that have never done this before and are walking in new a little bit better experience. So I'm not saying you can't do it. What I am saying is that you don't have to do it, and there's other ways you can control it and be a little bit more global and not have to have as much boilerplate. Does that answer your question? Yep. Okay, so why not simply lock it down and encrypted macros after approval on the forum? It's literally a case of who watches the watchers and who becomes the policemen, and I think Loot's probably got way more time trying to keep the site online and dealing with stupid DDoS stuff than to go through and setting up approval processes and who authorizes and who doesn't, and yeah. Yep, so Roger 666, is there a detect phase? So each one of these sequences has a thing called a spec ID, that line there. Now the spec ID, so the spec ID basically says 70 is a retribution paladin, 66 is a holy paladin, or a protection paladin as opposed to a ret paladin, but each spec has a number. Each class also has a number. So if I, as a macro author, turn around and change this to spec ID equals 2, I'm saying that this is a macro that's available for all paladins. By making it 70, I'm saying this is available for all retribution paladins, right? And by entering the command /gs, what it'll do is, after I clean this up, I'll turn debug mode off because that'll actually make it a little bit easier to read. So I turn that off, and we'll change our colors of the authors from that back to a bluish color. That's just my personal preference. And by entering /gs, it literally tells you the macros that are available, and it puts everyone that's available for either your class or your spec up in your macro tab. So it's literally a case of, yes, if you're starting from scratch, you're starting from nothing, you'd come in, go GS, grab your particular macro that you want. I want that one, drag it to your bar, walk up, and just start smacking away. Now this is broken because I've turned the translator on again, which I need to turn off. So there's a reason why I'm using 1.2. 1.2 is not available yet, and all these bugs will be fixed by the time I get this out. It's just not quite there yet. Yeah, so yeah, I looked at the way Weak Auras does their exports, and they export this big massive string that has a whole lot of programming code, and it's done for transmission reasons, but you're looking at it going, I don't know what half of that gobbledygook type stuff means. It just looks like a stream of garbage. It could be anything. So keeping the readability type stuff is the stuff that I've tried to keep stuff happening with. Yes, now, if I hit the right... Now there's another one that I've added. So by default, there is a line that seems to crop up pretty often, and I'll just switch back to the editor for a sec. It's this line here. Whoops, that's not the button I was after, this one. Target enemy, no harm, dead. So what that does is it'll basically turn around and flip around, and if you're close, from if you're nearby and you're in combat, you press that button, it'll jump to the next enemy and keep smacking stuff around. If you're not near a next enemy, so if you're playing a ranged character, what some people turn around and said is, I'm doing this, I was a ranged person, I hit the button and I attacked the guy down the hallway in the next room around the corner when the tank wasn't ready for it, and my raid's getting really pissed off at me. So this other one here, this other option that's been added in, where is it? Require target to use. So this is literally a case of the macro won't fire, and it'll stop firing if you don't have a target. So if you're whacking away, your target dies, that won't then automatically let your macro target the next thing. It'll literally go, no, my target's gone, dead, finished, I'm not moving on. So it was submitted by someone that played, I think, a hunter and a mage, and they've gone, we do this, but we keep on having to add it into our macros. Can you help us? So it's in there. It's there as a global thing. If you don't need it, don't turn it on. It's one of those ones. Have a look at, have a think about it, play with it. Yeah, keep it. It'll either work for you or if it won't. If it doesn't work for you, let it go. You're following focus, so there's that target focus one that Amber Green has just linked in. There's actually Amber's website. I think it's Troubleshooting. She's literally going through and digging through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different options and documenting what all of they are. So this target at focus basically says that if I've got a focus, like I've got this one here, so I've used my focus command. I'll switch back to game so you can actually see what I'm talking about. If I go focus, help if I actually... Right, I've now got a focus frame, which is that one there, right? So in my macro, I'll just grab one at random. So where this has got target enemy, I could actually have target and stuff down here, and everything that happens after this this stuff only happens to that frame. So if I go back to the editor, I think some of there's, and go to Druid. As I come down the bottom here, if it's not Druid, it'll be Priest. There's just sometimes I get what's in what macro and what classes mixed up. I'm literally looking for yeah. So this one here. This DB KTN Druid Heals written by KTN. KTN is an abbreviation for a guy called Kill the Noise. Yeah, Kill the Noise, written some great stuff. But this part here, this cast focus dead. So it's literally a case of he's got this macro that if you're dead, it'll res you. That's the first thing it does. If you're the focus, like you're the tank, and you die, he's hitting that button. The first thing it'll do is res you if you're dead. The next thing it's like, on the focus, so irrespective of what I'm doing, just cast this at the focus. So reset 15 or when I get out of combat, so I leave combat, it does stuff. Cast Life Bloom, then cast Regrowth, then Rejuve, then Life Bloom, Regrowth, Rejuve. Cast at my focus, cast Cenarian Ward, and then at my target, so while I've got the focus sitting on that target dummy over here, at my target, which is over there, do this. So mouse over, it exists, it needs help, so it's got stuff and it no dead. Do a regrowth. So on the thing that I've got my mouse over, do a regrowth, rejuve, healing touch. Do that, but every other time. So on my first key press, res the tank. If the tank's not dead, on my first key press, do life bloom. On my second key press on the tank, do Cenarian Ward. On my third key press on the party member that my mouse is sitting over, do a regrowth. Then go back. Is the tank dead? No. Then do a regrowth on the tank, a Cenarian Ward on the tank, then do a rejuve on the person that my mouse is over. Is that making sense? Yep. So there's that target focus stuff. But Amber's written up a whole chunk of this stuff and just going over and over and over with a whole bunch of detail about how it works. Yeah, so following focus, macro writers here. Yeah, Star Silver, I can't echo what you say enough. I can write I can write a mod. I can't really write good macros. I write stuff that works for me, but I can't write awesome stuff. And the people that are doing stuff on WoW Lazy macros, I can't speak up enough about the amount of time they spend with things like Simcraft and Recount and their macros and target dummies, just doing stuff over and over and over and over and over again, tweaking stuff. I was talking to Amber Green earlier today. She's basically gotten a better macro than the one that's on Simulcraft at the moment, and just got some nice, shiny, testy stuff. I think Callian was accused of being a bot because she was doing her sequences just that well from another one of the macros that have been done. So there's the stuff. So the macros that are in Drake's macros, they're there as a starting point. They're not supposed to be the be all and end all. They're just basically, I've got this thing. What does it do? Here's some stuff. If you keep an eye on the WoW Lazy macro site or the Discord chat or stuff like that, you'll see that there's people that are iterating over stuff all the time. They're constantly updating it. They're constantly tweaking it. When we start getting our artifact weapons in a couple of weeks' time, you'll see all of the macros will start changing and there'll be different shades of useful, and all of a sudden things that didn't make any sense at the moment will. Like, so Retribution Paladins, until you get your Ashbringer, at the moment the class is broken. That's the easiest way of describing it. It's just not in place, intent, it's just broken. And that's just one of the fun parts of the next couple of weeks. Yeah, need beef back in Hunterland. Yeah, so you have to watch the health or you're on to the next target. So if you go to so Ice Close, I'm going to put a link in here to the website. This is the website that you can add your own pages and curse pages for more and more and more and more macros, right? Right, so that's where you can share them. There is the ability, so I've done Drake's macros, Dark has done his one, Hiro Yakamura has done another one specifically and totally for Druids, which is an add-on to Gnome Sequencer Enhanced. I'll just dig up a link to that, to Hiro's one, because she's not here. So this is it. Right, so this one that I'm about to send you, this is literally a macro set it's by a person that just mains a druid, and it's by a druid for a druid. Where'd my Twitch window go? Right. So alright, so hero stuff. So if you're playing a druid, grab hero stuff. It's really good and dealt with. But what you can do is, so I started with this mod, my macros. It's literally a case of it's Drake's macros minus all the macros, and it's completely blank. So I'm on the editor at the moment. If I go to like the Demon Hunter page in my macros, it's got enough to basically, it's got all the framework of the mod, but none of the sequences. So you can actually put your own stuff in here. But what you can do with this is you can go a step further. You can rename the folder as long as it begins GS minus something. You could call it whatever you liked. So you could call it GS Ice Close Rocks. All you then have to do is go inside this and change this file, the toc file, to gs icecloserocks.toc, and then change the title and change the word my macros. And then all of a sudden, you've then got a working mod that has all of your stuff. You could take that, make it a zip file. You can then give it to your guildmates. You can give it to your friends. You can put it on Curse like Dark and Hero have done. And then it becomes available to just about everybody that's got the Curse client. They can just go there. They look for what other macro packs are they, and they've got it. I am going to be starting a special macro. I've started work on a special macro pack, and it's called GS High Performance Macros. Now this is really different to any of the other stuff I've done, but it's literally a case of, as people are putting stuff up on WoW Lazy Macros, this mod pack is literally the place for the best of the best. And what makes it the best of the best isn't that I turn around and go, that's the best of the best. What makes it the best of the best is somebody's turning around and saying, this one right here is performing over and over above what everything else is doing. This should be a high performance one. Now those macros will take time, they'll take patience, they'll take energy. If you're looking for a one button win macro, they aren't them. But if you're looking one that you turn around and go, so if you're looking for a macro and you want to spend half an hour to 4 days figuring out how it works to get the most out of it, and then going from doing 40k DPS on average to 150k, these are the macros for you. But they're going to take time, they're going to take patience, they're going to take a lot of time to actually change the way you play to get the most out of it. So that's stuff that, and how they get onto that list is literally a case of, there's been 2 so far. There's been a bunch of Hunter macros by John, and there's been an Enhancement Shaman macro by Roctress. Yeah, and the one by Roctress, everyone that's been using it is basically just drooling over what it's done. Dark, but I mean, if you're creating your own macro pack and you're creating your own thing, you don't have to post your macros on WoW Lazy Macros. That's up to you. That's, if you put them there, people will iterate, discuss them, debate them. You don't have to share them anywhere. It's literally a case of you do what works. So you may, so like our Aggie Tallboys created his own GitHub repository where he's dumping just about everything under the sun that he can find that he thinks is useful into, and he's broken it down by each file. Each class has its own spec and its own file and all sorts of stuff like that. But I'm saying, if you want somewhere where you want people to be able to discuss what you're doing and iterate through it and work through it, WoW Lazy Macros is literally the place to get all of that stuff. It's the place where, if I go looking for help, that's where I go. And stuff like that. So, yeah. Where's the first one? A cast sequence? I don't understand. Oh, the Hunter ones? Probably because it's one of a set. I don't know. No, Amber, I've lost the context of what you've said. So you've got, why is the first one cast sequence with only one spell? Oh, for the Shaman one. That is a very interesting question. Same as like, why is it cast sequence for Flame Tongue? I have no idea. If anyone sees Roctress, can you ask him that? All I've known is I've just been hearing people talking about how it's behaving and performing, and it appears to be performing way above average. So, but yeah. Yep. But the Hunter ones are just pages and pages and pages of bits where it's got things like Looking Dead, whatever else. Now, Ever asked this question about step sequences and stuff way early on. I haven't forgotten it. I'll come back to it now. So, when you edit a sequence, there's these two. There's this step function set. Now, step functions is where things get. No worries, Roger. If you have any other questions, leave me a note on Discord. In game, I'm pretty easy to find. my daily routine for the last 3 weeks has been I get up, I check Discord, I check Curse, I check the forums, I go to work. Every hour pretty much at work, I'm checking stuff. I come back from work, I'm checking stuff, I'm in-game writing stuff. I then go to sleep for about 5 or 6 hours and I'm back doing it all over again. So if you ever need to catch me, I am very, very, very easy to find. If I can't answer it, I'll find someone that can, and try and get you on your way. But yeah, so step functions. So step functions, there's two that I've defined because they're the two that people use. By the way, I'm out of milk. Okay, I'll go and fix that. When you're next stalking me, just bring some and drop it in the fridge. That'd be great. So the priority list and sequentials are the two that I've got out of the box, because step functions is where you go from being generally accessible to you're out in your own world. The step function basically says that I've got these lines of a macro, and if I try and bring I'll try and bring both of these screens into view at the same time. So if I move this down into here. Okay, so the step function basically says that for each line, like these ones here, I'm going to behave a particular way. So behavior 1 is like, if you've got it just running in normal mode, it'll go line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4, line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. Now where this gets complicated is that a lot of people use this same sequence of about 8 lines. So I'll come back to your question in a sec, I see it. But yeah, they use this same sequence of 8 lines that basically set up a priority system. Now, if you remember Retribution Paladins from Wrath of the Lich King through to about everything prior to this last patch, they were very much a case of you did this as your priority. If that was available, you smash that. If not that, then this. If not that, then this. If not that, then this. And so in my case, yeah, playing in game, I'd line up the things across the bottom and literally go left to right. I'd hit that one, yeah, whichever one of these from the left appeared first, that's the one I'd hit. The way that the step function works is it tries to replicate some of that functionality. So your default step function is just 1, 2, 3, 4. The second one, this priority list, is literally a case of it goes down through the lines, but it goes through the lines in a very different manner. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, it goes 1. Did that work? Yes. Fantastic. Start again. Okay, 1, are you available? No. All right. 2, are you available? Yes. Do that. Okay, let's start again. 1, are you available again now? No. 2, are you available? No. 3, are you available? Yes, I'll do that. Let's start again. 1, are you available? No. 2, are you available? Yes. Start again. 1, are you available? Yes. Right, start again. 1, are you available? No. 2, are you available? Yes. Do 2. 1, are you available again? 2, are you available? 3, are you available? Yes. Okay, and off we go. So it starts at the top and it cycles down. Now, trying to explain that in a simple editor that somebody that's never done this before, yeah, it really, I couldn't find a way to make it easy that I could explain to my best friend. Now, my best friend is technically savvy. He can reinstall Windows, he can rebuild his computer, he knows about drivers and whatever else. But trying to explain step functions to him that go beyond that kind of stuff, he couldn't comprehend it or grasp it or edit it. So what you can do back in the code is you can define your own step function. So I've got this one that's geostatic priority, basically means go these 8 lines. But there's people that have got some step functions where they've got their spells set out like here's 10 spells, but their step function is basically stepping through those 10 spells almost all over the place. You can do it, it will work, but you can't do it in the in-game editor. The in-game editor, it's way beyond the confines of what I could code for. There's a Windwalker macro that's got something like about 80 odd lines to it on WoW Lazy macros at the moment. And you're trying to make sense of what it was doing. I was continually looking here, looking there, looking here, looking there, looking here. So it was literally going 42221715517733121216674. I'm sitting there going, 1, okay, that's that spell. 7, that's that spell. That da da da. So they work, they're available, the game will run them. What it won't do, what I just couldn't do is I couldn't find a way of putting that kind of functionality into the sequence editor and having somebody that didn't have a clue what was going on make sense of it. So, Amber, your question about custom step functions are available. You can do them, but you need to code them out of game in your text editor, and then bring them into the game and operate them and test them. Okay, so question from Ice Close. If there's 2 lines of cast sequences in a macro, it won't go through the first one completely, then move to the second one. You say it does the first one. It does the first. So let's find something that's got 2 cast sequence lines. So druids, right? So I'm just using these 2 lines here. Right. What it'll do is it'll start. So ignore the rest of all this other stuff. Let's just look at these 2 lines. It'll go that one, then 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 that one. Oh, sorry. I'll try that again. It'll go there, Thrash, Savage Defense, Moonfire, Swipe, Maul, Swipe, Swipe, Savage Defense, Thrash, Frenzied Regeneration, Moonfire, Iron Fur, Maul, Swipe, Savage Defense, Thrash, Swipe. Right? So it'll literally ping pong through the 2. And go through that kind of stuff. So yeah, it doesn't use the cast sequence the way that a normal thing uses a cast sequence, but it gives you a lot of flexibility. So you might have a cast sequence, but you want to do 2 spells, then a spell, then 2 spells, then a spell, then 2 spells, then a spell every time. And you could turn around and do something like, so I'll just grab these, I'll grab these 3 lines and just go way out of the road and change the order. So if you had these 3 lines in a sequence, it would go Survival Instincts, Thrash, Savage Defense. Survival Instincts, Thrash, Swipe. Survival Instincts, Thrash, Swipe. Survival Instincts, Thrash, Savage Defense. So you can actually do some mixing and matching type stuff. Aggie Tallboy. Alright, so you're talking about ring. Okay, you didn't use it. I hold it to get. Okay, cool. That's not one I need to worry about. I don't understand too much about hunters or those kind of bits and pieces. I leave that for people that know stuff about their class. I think there's a guy called Beef. He's literally written some of the best stuff about hunters I've ever seen. Okay, so the reason for the reset equals combat. So if you leave combat, it basically resets that stuff and you're back to normal. So you're in your macro, you're doing stuff, you're halfway down the bottom, you're partway through your cast sequence, you're out of combat, it'll reset it back to the beginning and back to the top and back to the front. Yep. Okay. So I've been waffling on for an hour and 15 minutes, which is way more than I thought. Do you guys have any questions other than ones that I can answer and deal with? Because if not, I probably leave you guys in peace and then go back to fixing all of the bugs that you saw in 1.2 so I can get it out to you as soon as you can. Alrighty, well, in which case, unless there's something else that pops up in the last couple of seconds, just really wanted to say, guys, thank you for coming out to the very first masterclass on Gnome Sequencer Enhanced. Anything, you know, if you have any bits that you want me to look at or add in or whatever else, send me a note, drop an issue onto GitHub. I'll work through it and deal with them. A whole bunch of other bits and pieces. It's literally a case of, yeah, I'm learning as I go, but whatever we can do to help, that's what we're there for. I also I can't thank enough of the guys that make whale, yeah, the guys like Lechechi that made whale lazy macros and all that kind of stuff. I can't talk up enough about how they're doing. Some of the things that we're going to probably look at doing as a community after we get through the first couple of weeks in Legion is probably doing something like putting a raid on once a week for all those people that are part of the whale lazy macros community, but just they don't want to pug, they don't want to look at stuff, they don't want to look at weird stuff. Yeah, we're gonna put a. I was talking to Amber earlier and just threw this crazy idea out of let's have a whale lazy macros raid for like a couple of hours on a Friday night for those guys that they're doing LFR, they want to do something a little bit more adventurous, but they don't want, they're not in a guild for whatever, all those kind of reasons. We'll actually work through what that all means and how we make that happen. But so basically after we've gotten into Legion a couple of weeks, we'll start throwing a raid together, just to have some fun and shits and giggles and just see what we can see. But apart from that, yeah, it's literally a case of thank you guys for being whale lazy raid. Because what makes that work now is that with the cross zoning stuff, me being a leper in Australia, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So somebody said if someone felt like donating, there's two places. There's two places really to donate. Donate to Whale Lazy Macros, that keeps the site online, that takes care of some of the bills that Lutechi's paying to keep things running. If you really, I mean, Lute's the guy that he's got actual expenses to do this stuff. If you really want to donate to me if you really want to donate for me because you're feeling super generous and super keen and whatever else, on the Curse site and on the WoW interface site where you download the mod, there's a link to like a PayPal donation thing. But in all seriousness, I don't do this for the money. I do this because I love the game. I love playing the game. And even if you don't donate, I'll still be doing this. But in the case of the WoW Lazy Macro site, Loot has expenses, and they're real expenses that cost real dollars and real money. So honestly, if you're going to donate to that as a priority. And then if you feel like being super generous and you want to donate something to me, I'll accept it and I'll take it. But I'm not doing this for that I'm not doing this for that purpose. But I will appreciate your generosity. So I honestly hope, I'm hoping that I've got the settings right, that this will actually have been saved. I don't know. But again, thank you guys. Any questions you've got, send them to me and I will do what I can. If you want to do another one of these in the future at a different time, we'll make it happen. But apart from that, I'm going to disappear, go grab a cup of coffee, a glass of red wine, and then go back to coding and fixing problems. But if you need me, I'll be on the Discord site. For those of you that haven't seen Discord, there's a link to it off the WoW Lazy Macro site. There's a chat thing that's both voice and text and a whole lot of bits and pieces. Yeah, and stuff like that. So, see you later on with milk. So in which case, it's probably midnight in some places. Weak auras. Okay. I have good news and I have interesting news. I'm working on the ability to be able to store weak auras in like your macros folder, so that then when you load it in, it'll actually copy in. So there's guys like Dark Rams is doing some phenomenal stuff with weak auras. The stuff that he's doing. We're working on a way to make it easy to put into. So he does his GS Dark Rams mod, and it has the weak aura stuff in there and imports in there. There's got to be a way to make it happen. We're working through it, and that'll be something coming probably in like a 1.3, 1.4-ish type bit. So there is something happening with weak auras that's coming that'll be very, 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 very useful and cool. So it's 2:50 p.m. here in the future for you guys that are over in the US. So yes, I do have an accent. I'm an Australian. I live in Adelaide, which is literally the middle of the bottom of Australia. It's middle of winter here at the moment. So but for those guys that are sitting at 1:20 a.m., thank you guys so much. Dark, you've been up half of the night waiting for this. Thank you so much for being around and your help, and it's all been appreciated. So, in which case, good night. Thank God, and thanks for all the fish. We'll see you soon.